Hello one and all, this is my recap and review of Arifureta Volume 12. And I've gotta say, it really is amazing what a flashback can do. I mean, before I started reading this volume, I hated Eri and I wanted her to die. But after reading this volume, or at least after reading the first 60 pages, I wanted her to win. I mean, I didn't necessarily want her to beat Hajime and keep Koki enslaved, but I wanted her to get someone who was as great as she believed Koki to be. Oh yeah, and the flashback actually made me hate Koki even more, which I did not think was physically possible. But okay, anyway, Eri's story begins when she is 6 years old, and her father pushes her out of the way of a moving car, saving her life, but at the cost of his own. And unfortunately for Eri, her mother is just as crazy as she is, and was completely and utterly obsessed with Eri's father, so much so that she started berating and abusing her own daughter, blaming her for his death. And the saddest part of all this, just holy mother of God above, is the fact that Eri still believed her mother could go back to who she used to be after she was done grieving. But instead, she just started dating a new guy because, as it turns out, Eri's father wasn't all that special. I mean, he's probably a great guy, but her mother is just completely and utterly incapable of living without a man in her life, a trait which, sadly, Eri inherited. And also, they both just seem to have the absolute worst taste in men, and eventually the boyfriend went after Eri. But despite the absolute horror of the situation, Eri kept a calm mind and was able to get the neighbor's attention just like she planned, showing how utterly brilliant Eri was, even at a young age. Unfortunately though, things didn't get better from here, as her mother blamed her for seducing her boyfriend. Disgusting. Absolutely freaking disgusting. And this just, fully justifiably broke Eri, so she decided to jump off a bridge, and was only stopped by Koki, her knight in shining armor. Or so she thought. Turns out Koki didn't really care about her. He was happy to save her, and made sure that all the girls in the class were nicer to her moving forward, but then he just, fully forgot about her. Like, literally. There's a point later on in the volume where he genuinely asks what he did to upset her, showing that he probably doesn't even remember saving her. She was just another damsel in distress. He also just, fully misunderstood Eri's story. She, let her heart out. She told everything to him, and he misinterpreted it as Eri being scolded by her father and her mother not taking her side, so she decided to end herself. Which is just an overwhelming, disgusting level of ignorance right there. Oh, and to make things even worse, this volume also reveals that Koki is barely even brainwashed. Most of his thinking is actually his own warped sense of reality. He's also, just fully willing to kill his own friends, since they can just be brought back to life by eat. So yeah, Koki sucks. Oh, and he and Eri are now basically apostles, and might be sleeping together, so that's something. Anyway though, meanwhile Hajime and his party have broken into Sanctuary, the realm of the gods, and are attacked by a few hundred apostles, but Hajime has grown so strong that they are barely a nuisance at this point. He even drops this great line, "I improved, what'd you do?" Love it, absolutely love it. I mean, it really goes to show that Hajime is always pushing himself to his limit, and his lace invention is just so absolutely fantastic. Living bullets. Every one of the bullets he fires out of his gun is a golem that can adjust itself in midair, making them almost impossible to dodge or deflect. Huzzah! And then they find themselves in the desolate ruins of a modern city that he destroyed in the past before perfectly preserving as a trophy. And Hajime bombs it to complete and absolute rubble with his latest rocket launcher. Huzzah! A pretty smart move since Eri was in the city and was trying to escape. Thankfully for her, though, Hajime has no interest in her or Koki and leaves them to the B team while he rushes off to go save Yui. And Koki is just left on the ground screaming for Hajime to come and fight him. Like a little yapping dog. Beautiful. But anyway, though, then we get to the prologue, like 63 pages into the volume, which is a very weird choice, especially since it's Kaori's only appearance in the main story of this volume, and yet she is on the freaking cover. I mean, don't be wrong, I love seeing her in her, fallen angel form, but there are so many more relevant options for the cover. Like Shea and Tio, they're basically, the main characters of this volume. Or Suzu. I mean, Suzu would be a weird choice for, the second to last volume, but Tio and Shea, that'd be perfect. Anyway, though, the prologue is basically just Kaori declaring that she won't lose and will hold out until Hajime kills God. Huzzah! Anyway, though, then back in the B-team fight, Suzu, Ryu, and Shizuku get ready to face off against Kaoki, Eri, and her army of 200 corpse apostles. And we do see some very impressive upgrades from the B-team. Shizuku has instant transcendence, a skill which basically applies evolution magic to a single body part for 1 second. Plus she has 100 onyx blades, which are basically indestructible flying swords that she controls with her mind. Love it. Ryu has learned to cast metamorphosis magic on himself, which is basically the hardest spell in the entire world, but he pulled it off just with pure grit and determination. Good for him. And he can now transform into a fast werewolf, a strong ogre, a fast and strong were-ogre, or a treant, which is actually incredibly weak, but is capable of absorbing light magic, making him basically immune to all of Kaoki's spells. Smart move, a very, very smart move on his part. And finally, Suzu just absolutely dominates the battlefield. She has an army of terrifying bug monsters and is constantly helping out her team with support magic, making Eri's debuff magic much, much less effective. Not to mention, she also has her bunny Inaba, whose stats are basically on par with Shizuku's. Oh, this bunny's broken. This bunny is so overwhelmingly broken, and I love it. And after some serious butt-kicking, Suzu goes off to fight Eri by herself, and finally have that much-needed conversation between them. And it is very much needed. Suzu legitimately asks Eri if she gets along with her parents. Seriously, Suzu had no idea that her best friend's father had died when she was 6 years old. Oh, that is sad. That is so overwhelmingly sad. And that's because, Eri kept it all inside, and Suzu didn't pry, she didn't push, because she didn't want to strain their relationship. And deep down, she also just wanted somebody to love her. She wanted Eri to love her, just like Eri wanted Koki to love her. And even after all of this, Suzu still wants that. She even freaking offers to protect Eri from Hajime. She offers to fight the monster of the abyss if Eri will just take her hand. But she doesn't. She still tries to kill Suzu and is just so hopelessly outmatched that her body is torn to shreds, but she still chases after Koki. God, this girl is sad. This girl is really, really sad. Anyway, though, speaking of sad, meanwhile, Koki is also in the process of getting his butt kicked, thanks to Shizuku's True Strike skill, which allows her to cut things that lack physical form, like Kaoki's connection to God and Eri's brainwashing. But sadly, Koki is still just overwhelmingly crazy and blames Hajime for everybody betraying him, so he decides to destroy the entire world because Ryu and Shizuku don't want to be his friends anymore. And I'd mock him more for this, but that's kind of exactly what Hajime tried to do last volume with his Reaper chains, and that was really cool in my book. Anyway, though, Koki's plan absolutely fails, and his friends kick his butt again, and promise him they aren't going to abandon him, so he finally decides to change and grow up. Huzzah! Thank freaking God. Anyway, though, then Eri shows up, and she is just so fully broken that when Koki rejects her, she decides just to, self-destruct. But Suzu stops her, somehow, and then we get this weird trope of, oh, they're in a white room where they can say their goodbyes. Though it violates the trope a little bit, because the first several minutes of this are just Eri and Suzu constantly insulting each other back and forth. Oh, it's beautiful. My favorite line was, I'm not the one who was so obsessed with her first love that she literally mind controlled the dude to get him. It doesn't get any creepier than that. Oh, that is savage. That is absolutely freaking savage, and I love it. But anyway, though, eventually Eri's time comes, and as she's fading away, she acknowledges that the time I spent with you was the only time in my life I ever felt even a little happy. Oh, that is beautiful. That is really beautiful. And Suzu is saddened, but also at peace with how this all ended. Anyway, though, while this is going on, Hajime's party flew through a number of different zones and basically nuked every one of them out of existence until they find themselves in a looping barrier created by a terrifying 1,000-meter-long sea monster. But when Hajime declares his desire to eat the sea monster, it freaks out and runs away, and they're able to move on to the next part, where they find Freed, or an upgraded Freed, and his dragon Uranus on a floating island, and he basically demands that Hajime leave Tio and Shea behind, which he eventually agrees to since he knows they can handle him, his dragon, and his army of 2,000 monsters by themselves very easily. Though the battle does start off a bit rough, Tio gets absolutely blasted by Uranus's poisonous breath, and Shea gets ambushed by the first 5 apostles, basically archangels. Though this isn't really a major issue, Freed does this whole long monologue, oh haha, you didn't know this, but Uranus's breath is poisonous, and wounds inflicted by it will not heal, haha! And it's like, yeah, Freed, we know what this breath does. Certainly a bit more powerful now, but both Hajime and Tio have already been hit by this before, and Hajime has already made a cure for it. So weird, so utterly, utterly weird. But anyway, though, then it's time to start pulling out the trump cards. Tio's first trump card is an army of 100 black dragons that she tamed, each of which is covered in artifacts. And then she pulls out the Obsidian Dominator, a whip, which is a weird weapon for masochists, but it is an insanely cool weapon. It can extend up to 3 kilometers, cut space, and even damage a person's soul. So awesome. But even more terrifying is her Dragon Queen's Edict, which forcibly and disturbingly mutates any monster it hits into a black dragon that she can control. Oh, and she can also turn dead enemies into corpse dragons, a move that literally sickens Freed, but deeply, deeply impressed Hajime. Oh, that man ain't right, and Tio loves him for it. Meanwhile, Shea basically just keeps going plus ultra over and over and over again for this entire fight. She's always had the skill Body Enhancement 1, which boosted all of her other stats for every point of magic power she had, but through some seriously harsh training, she eventually managed to have it reach Body Enhancement 3, giving her 3 points to every stat for every 1 point of magic power she had. But over the course of this fight, she kept pushing herself over and over again until she eventually reached Body Enhancement level 10, putting her stats close to 80,000 and absolutely dwarfing even the Platinum Apostles, who eventually managed to become just a bit human as a result of their overwhelming hatred for her. Oh, I love it. Oh, and also, during this fight, she made a new weapon entirely out of her own blood. So, that was cool. Meanwhile, Tio can't help but pity Freed. He was once a very good man who truly did care for his people and wanted to give them a better life, wanted them to live in a world without war. But Ehid's brainwashing has slowly taken hold, and now even Ernest's voice cannot reach him. So Free decides to summon literally every monster in Ihit's collection to stomp out Tio, 1,000,000 freaking monsters. And Tio decides to pull out her ultimate trump card that she'd been building up all this time. I mean, she was hoping to use it against Ihit, but she decides that wiping out 1,000,000 monsters could also probably help Hajime. And so she transforms into a mile-long dragon, a black dragon god, with all of her stats multiplied by a factor of 10. And so, yeah, the million monster army is very, very quickly wiped out by her insane godlike powers. And even Ernest, oh god, poor Ernest, he is cut in half and still he rushes to Freed's side, trying to save him, even at the cost of his own life. But eventually, they decide to die together. Ihit's brainwashing is no longer affecting him. Freed is freed. Though he does try to do something right before he dies. He goes to touch the obelisk. And this is really weird. I mean, that might have just been to ensure that Tio wouldn't hold back and would actually finish him. But I can also see him using the obelisk to teleport all the demons out of Sanctuary into some place where they would actually be safe. That feels very in character for Freed. Not sure about that. Anyway, though, then Tio and Shea start falling from the sky, and they do not have anywhere close to the strength needed to stop themselves from dying. Thankfully, though, they are saved by the bunny Inaba and the rest of the B team. Huzzah! Unfortunately, the entire dimension then starts falling apart. Probably because Hajime is in the process of killing God. But this means they're all kinda stuck and about to die. But thankfully the one, the only, the lovely Milady Resin shows up to save the day. Huzzah! Meanwhile, the epilogue is just Hajime walking down a long, glowing path until he finds Ihit wearing Yui's body, but it is a much, much more mature body, and I'm sure Hajime is going to have something to say about that. Oh, I cannot wait for that beatdown in Volume 13. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then after that, we just get a few bonus chapters and some extra stuff. The first is called An Affectionate Challenge for the Vampire Princess. And it's basically Kaori accidentally going through her own memories and giving us a very unique insight into her relationship with Yui, because while they may be incredibly antagonistic towards each other when others are around, they're actually rather supportive when they're alone, with Yui regularly sitting and listening to Kaori's problems and complaints. There's also just a rather interesting line here about Kaori's dad being overprotective. Which makes sense since his daughter is just insanely beautiful and a bit of an airhead. I'm very excited for him to meet Hajime and Hajime's 6 or 7 or 11 other lovers. Oh, that's gonna be fun. Anyway, though, the chapter ends with Kaori declaring to Yui, "The moment you get back, I'm gonna beat you to a pulp for making me worry so much." Love it. Absolutely love it. We then have the rabbit who heralds the end of a journey, which is, basically the story of how Shea went back to Milady to ask for backup, and when she gets there, she finds a whole bunch of dead apostles, and she realizes, hey, I think Milady may have gone a little bit easy on us. Yeah, it turns out she is strong. She is overwhelmingly strong and terrifying, and she is no longer cheery. She can actually see the weight of ages spent waiting on her shoulders. Oh, I love that line. And then we also get another interesting line from Milady, where she basically explains that rabbit men are actually incredibly strong. I mean, they have a very strong sense of empathy, so they aren't usually considered very violent. But once they get mad, they get scary. They get really freaking scary. And the chapter ends with Milady saying, "I'm glad you guys were the ones who conquered our labyrinths." And then, oh god, next chapter, Liberator Miyu's new friend. Oh, I love that. And the chapter basically starts off with Hajime farming the Hydra over and over and over again until Miyu begins to hear its voice begging to be put out of its misery, and she follows the voice down to a hidden cave beneath Oscar's house, where all of the monsters of the labyrinth are being stored and cloned. Though the Hydra is something special, it was Vondroy's familiar, and therefore it has will and sentience, and Miyu manages to free from the crystal, but it still needs help being woken up. And so it asks Miyu to step on him, which, yeah, a little weird, definitely a little weird there. And to make things even weirder, Miyu responds by stabbing it in the eye with a rock. Holy mother of God above, this girl is sadistic and I cannot wait. I cannot freaking wait to see what she grows up and becomes. I mean, the Hydra actually promises to protect her and promises to play with her in the future. So yeah, I think there's a very likely possibility that we're going to get a bonus chapter at some point in the future that is Miyu's journey traveling across the land with the Hydra as her familiar. Oh, I want that. I so badly want to see that. Oh god, then we get the White Dragon's Hope. Seriously, that is such an insanely depressing chapter, as it's basically the backstory for Freed and Ernest, both of whom lost people they cared about and lost the will to live, but they decided to keep fighting for the sake of the people they cared about, to protect the lives of their citizens. Unfortunately, then Freed got brainwashed by God and got really crazy, and Ernest's words were no longer able to reach him, but Ernest promises that together they will fly free under the sky once more after God is killed or after they reincarnate into the next life. I want that. I really want that. Just, some epilogue story of, Ernest and Freed meeting again somehow, some way. That'd be so freaking fantastic. And then we get Magic Academy Parents' Day. And not gonna lie, this chapter definitely disappointed me. I mean, I was really hoping this would be, Hajime showing his parents around the Magic Academy. And just having them react to all the girls who are in love with him. I mean, seriously, Hajime's parents are so freaking amazing, and we haven't even gotten close to enough of them. But anyway, though, instead it's just, all of the girls in Hajime's party fighting over who can be Miyu's mother. A very weird thing since Miyu already has a mother. And eventually Remy is able to stop the fighting with a terrifying smile, which led to a cult worshipping Remia being established on campus. And whenever the girls got out of control, they just called Remia, which, I get the cult. I absolutely get the cult. I mean, there's so much violence on that campus as a result of the girls fighting over Hajime. If someone can actually stop the violence, yeah, that's your new god. Why not? Oh, and then we get Sleeping Abyss's Beauty, which is basically, just Sleeping Beauty, but with Arifureta characters. Yui is the princess, 12 witches come to bless her, Shizuku is the leader of the witches, and blesses her with a maiden's heart. But then God pops in and is very upset that everyone is an atheist because he is, and there's a direct quote here, an attention whore. So he promises to steal the princess's body when she turns 16, and she ends up staying underground with 3 witches until Hajime shows up, they fall in love, and then Yui goes off and kills God and overthrows her father so she can be a queen and marry Hajime. Why not? Oh, fun. Yeah, next chapter, to awaken or not awaken. And there's a lot I can say about this, but the one line I really want to mention here, Hajime actually says, "Oh, did you inherit some ancient legendary treasure passed down among dragon men?" Yes, she did. Tio actually did that. Love it. Absolutely love that Hajime basically gets it correctly because it is such a freaking trope. Oh, that was beautiful. But then, Tio is really struggling to master the new whip, the Obsidian Dominator that Hajime made for her, and she needs a little motivation. So Hajime, without any hesitation, starts whipping her in public, and when people try to stop him, Tio very proudly, very confidently declares, "This is necessary to save the world!" And everyone just kinda believes her, except for her wet nurse who just cries in the corner for the rest of the night. Oh god, Tio, you make me sad. You make me really sad. And then we get the March of Civilization, which is basically just Aiko giving a weapons demonstration for all the world leaders, all of whom very much want to buy the weapons after the war, and all the other artifacts that Hajime's built, except for the engineers, who are basically just having, a divine revelation as they're staring at this incredibly advanced technology and thinking, how can we incorporate that? How can we reproduce that? How can we do this? How can we do that? Oh! So, good for them. Oh god, in the final chapter, Kaori's first job. It's basically, Kaori going to her classmates and asking them for artifact requests, while also acting like a door-to-door salesman hyping up products. Product number 1, a fish. An actual fish that Hajime reinforced after using it to defeat a dragon warrior like 6 or 7 volumes ago. Except now, it fires lasers from its mouth. Weapon number 2, a pair of glasses that also fire lasers, but they occasionally go off randomly and almost castrate a student. Number 3, an ashtray that separates the body and soul of anyone hit with it, for reasons. Number 4, a crowbar that comes with a free chainsaw for taking out zombies. And surprise, surprise, there are absolutely no buyers, and everyone just kind of assumes that these were joke weapons meant to lighten the mood, but knowing Hajime, I 100% believe that he was absolutely serious about every one of these weapons. That's just the particular kind of nut he is. Anyway though, those are my thoughts in this chapter. Overall, it was definitely, I think, better than I expected. I mean, I went into this expecting it to be, like, was it Volume 9? God, I hate Volume 9. Okay. I like Volume 9 because it ends with, Shizuku having like great moments, but everything leading up to it is so focused on the B team and just so slow and boring. But here, this is all really good. I mean, the first half of the volume was, Suzu, Ryu, Shizuku, they had really good fights. I really love the new artifacts Hajime made for them. I really love the new fighting styles. That was all so cool. And the second half was, Tio and Shea facing off against literal million monsters, 5 archangels, Freed, and his dragon, which had been evolved basically to become a god in its own right. Oh, that was some fun fighting right there. And next volume, the final volume, probably be split between, Kaori and basically everyone else facing off against an army of apostles, and Hajime facing off against Ihid and Yui's body, which, that's gonna be great, it's gonna be amazing, can't wait for those insane fights, can't wait to see Hajime, kill a literal god. What I'm so excited about, what I'm absolutely thrilled about, is the epilogue, just everything that comes after that. Everything of Hajime getting back to Earth, seeing his parents, introducing them to his whole harem, his daughter, all of that. Oh my god, above, that's amazing. That's going to be so freaking absolutely amazing. I mean, seriously, just, like I said before, Hajime's parents are so cool. I'm so excited to see them react to all of this. I would honestly not be surprised if Hajime's dad took a look at all of this and said, "So, you went for the harem ending, eh, son?" Oh, that would be absolutely fantastic. Please let me know think down below. What do you think of this volume? Were you disappointed? I mean, like I said, I went to this expecting disappointed, and it was better than I expected. It was quite enjoyable. Even though it wasn't, the main team, even though it wasn't Hajime himself doing the fighting, they were still very enjoyable fights, and I really liked them. What are your guesses and predictions for Volume 13? And do you think we'll see more content after Volume 13? I mean, I know the after story is actually, at this point, longer than the main story. The author literally cannot stop writing, and I'm so happy about that. But do you think we'll actually get to see that published one day in physical form or digital form or whatever? I would certainly love that. Just, I mean, web novels are great and all, but they are often very rough. I mean, that's the great thing about light novels. They are quite often, the second draft. The author's been through a good chunk of the story. He knows what's happening. His writing style is improved. He's able to fix a lot of the issues he had with his own story. That's great. Absolutely love that. Anyway, though, let me know anything else down below. And until next time, peace!